Hey there. Ever felt like you're waiting forever for something? Like a birthday? Or a visit from someone you love? Sometimes it can feel like we're waiting around forever, right? We all have those moments where our hopes seem to be just promises and we feel like giving up. But what if I told you there's someone who always has a perfect plan for us? Today, let's journey through amazing stories of people who, just like us, faced challenges, had to wait, and above all, trust. I'll show you how, even in the toughest times, we can find strength, faith, and even joy. Ready to discover how these stories can help us see life in a whole new way? Let's go! But first, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because the next videos will be a series of content that will help you strengthen your faith and bless your life. Have you ever stopped to think that everything has its perfect timing? Like when we plant a seed and need to patiently wait for it to sprout and grow. Our lives are no different. Sometimes we ask for something so urgently, but God, who knows every detail of our path, knows the perfect moment for everything. Let's talk about Zacchaeus, that guy who climbed a tree just to see Jesus pass by. He was anxious, wanted change, but had to wait in the right place, at the right time. And when Jesus reached that tree, he looked up and called him. That wasn't a coincidence. It was perfect timing. At that exact moment, Zacchaeus' life was transformed. Just like Zacchaeus, we need to learn to trust that God is taking care of everything. Even if we can't see the solution now, it will come at the right time, in the right way. And while we wait, we're not standing still. We're growing, learning, and preparing for what God has planned for us. After all, waiting can be an amazing journey if we trust that the conductor of the universe has the baton and knows exactly the timing of every note in our lives. Now, think of a moment when you felt weak, incapable, maybe even broken. It's tough, isn't it? But did you know that it's precisely in those moments that we can see God's strength shine in our lives? When we're weak, it's God's chance to show His power in us. Remember Jehu in the Bible? He was a man full of flaws, with his own internal and external struggles. However, he was chosen by God for a very important mission. God didn't choose him despite his weaknesses, but because through those weaknesses, God's power could be revealed. Jehu wasn't perfect, but God's strength was made perfect in his imperfection. That's the beauty of our journey with God. He doesn't expect us to be perfect to use us. In fact, our weak points are opportunities for His strength to be seen by everyone. When we embrace our weakness and allow God to work through it, we begin to understand the true power that surrounds us. He transforms us and makes us living witnesses that nothing is impossible when we surrender our struggles into His hands. Sometimes, life feels like a giant maze, full of twists, dead ends, and mysterious paths. In those times, it can be hard to understand why things are happening the way they are. But you know, there's a secret to navigating this maze, trusting in God's plan. Think of King Asa, a biblical figure who initially trusted deeply in God. He saw incredible victories that could only be attributed to divine power. However, over time, he began to rely more on his own wisdom and human counsel. The result? Asa found himself in trouble, facing challenges that could have been avoided if he had maintained his trust in the Lord. Asa's story teaches us a valuable lesson. Even when the path ahead is uncertain and we don't understand everything that's happening, we can rest knowing that God is in control. He knows every curve of our maze and has a perfect plan to guide us to a place of victory and peace. Trusting in God isn't about understanding every step. It's about knowing that, in the end, each step will take us exactly where we need to be. Understanding faith is like holding a tiny seed in your hands and visualizing the immense tree it can become. Faith is that certainty that something great can arise even if it's not yet visible. And one of the most touching examples of active faith is in the story of blind Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus was on the side of a road in Jericho when he heard that Jesus was passing by. Even though he couldn't see, his faith made him see an opportunity for change. He started shouting, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many tried to silence him, but he shouted even louder. His faith wasn't passive. It was a faith that acted, that shouted, that made itself heard. When Jesus called him, Bartimaeus threw off his cloak, got up, and went to him. This gesture of throwing off his cloak symbolizes abandoning old ways of living, a total trust in Christ's transforming power. And of course, his faith was rewarded. He received his sight. Faith, therefore, is much more than believing silently. It's an active force that pushes us forward, that makes us act even when the path isn't visible. It's that certainty that, even in the face of the unknown, we're safe because we're in the hands of the one who can transform everything. And after understanding the power of faith, a new question arises: how to maintain that faith day after day, especially in difficult times? The answer lies in perseverance, that incredible ability to keep walking even when the path becomes arduous. Let's remember the story of Jonah, the one who was swallowed by a big fish. Jonah tried to run away from his calling, faced storms, and finally found himself in the belly of a fish. It was a dark place, probably scary, a scenario that many of us would describe as rock bottom. But it was precisely there, in that difficulty, that Jonah found his true strength. He prayed, reflected on his actions, and decided to trust in God, no matter how difficult the situation was. And after 3 days, he was released, more prepared than ever to follow his calling. This experience shows how perseverance can transform our biggest obstacles into foundations for personal and spiritual growth. Perseverance isn't just waiting for things to get better. It's an active participation in the process of becoming who we need to be. Trusting that, with each difficult step, we're one step closer to fulfilling God's plans for our lives. As we learn to persevere, a new horizon opens up, that of finding true peace, the kind that only God can give. This peace is like a safe haven in the midst of a storm, a place where we can rest even when everything around us seems chaotic. The story of Mary and Martha gives us a beautiful lesson about this. While Martha was running around, trying to do everything perfectly, Mary chose to sit at Jesus' feet and listen to his words. Martha was anxious and worried about many things, but Mary found peace by choosing what was better, being present with the Lord. This moment teaches us that God's peace isn't just an absence of problems, but a deep tranquility that invades our hearts when we decide to focus on what truly matters. It's not about silencing the external world, but about allowing God's voice to be the clearest in our mind, sun, and heart. Embracing God's peace means recognizing that, despite the storms, there's a safe place where we can find serenity and clarity. It's a daily choice to prioritize our relationship with God, trusting that, under His care, we're truly safe and at peace. And as we embrace God's peace, we're ready to discover the deep joy that comes with total surrender to Him. Surrender might seem like a word that means giving up, but in God's kingdom, it's synonymous with victory and freedom. The story of the widow of Zarephath exemplifies this truth beautifully. In the midst of a terrible famine, she was prepared to make her last meal with the little flour and oil she had, expecting only death afterward. However, when the prophet Elijah asked her to make a small loaf of bread for him first, she faced a critical moment of decision. Hold on to the little she had or trust in the God of Elijah. Her choice to surrender and trust resulted in a continuous miracle. The flour and oil didn't run out, providing for her and her son throughout the entire period of scarcity. Her surrender brought not only survival, but a joy and peace that can only come from complete trust in God. Thus, true surrender is letting go of control, trusting that God has the best for us. It's a surrender that frees us from the burden of trying to solve everything on our own and allows us to experience the true joy and fullness that God desires for our lives. When we surrender, we allow God to be God in our lives, and that's the greatest joy of all. If you're enjoying this content, hit the like button. It's really important so YouTube keeps sharing our videos with you, and we can continue to help you. So go ahead and like this video. It's free. So we journeyed together through these incredible stories, didn't we? Each one showed us a little piece of what it means to live trusting in God. From learning to wait for the right moment with Zacchaeus, to discovering strength in our weaknesses with Jehu, and understanding that even in life's mazes, God has a perfect plan. We also explored how faith can move us, how perseverance shapes us, and how true peace comes when we focus on what truly matters. And finally, we learned that surrendering to God isn't losing, it's gaining much more than we can imagine. I hope you take with you not only these stories, but also the certainty that you're not alone in this journey. God is with you every step of the way, in every challenge, in every victory. And when we trust in Him, every moment of our lives is filled with meaning. So, how about we take this adventure into our daily lives? Let's trust. Let's have faith. Let's persevere, seek peace, and surrender to the wonderful journey that God has prepared for each one of us. Thank you for being here with me. And remember, the greatest adventure begins with a simple step of faith. See you next time. I invite you to click on this video that's appearing on the screen now. You'll like it. God bless.